Hello. Um, Good morning, everyone. Welcome to African STEM Girl. So today we are going to be building a responsive login and sign up page using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And we are going to learn the fundamentals of authentication, how actually users are usually able to be verified when you're signing in and when you are logging in. And we are going to learn how to style HTML forms. And we are going to be able to see how we can be able to add icons into our form and make our form to look beautiful and stylish using CSS. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I hope you can hear me. So if you can hear me, we can chat in the chat section. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can see my screen. In the meantime, just confirm everything is good. Yes. So I'm going to go to my Visual Studio. So Visual Studio is what we call an IDE. An IDE is an environment that has been curated to enable us to be able to run our code and to see the code outputs that we have. So think about, like, if I was to tell you I would want you to make me an egg, what will be the first things that you will do? The first things you will do is you'd go to the kitchen. You will most probably get an egg, get some pan, make sure you have a source of heat um, to be able to create this environment that is suitable for you to be able to cook an egg successfully. So the same thing is going to happen here. We are going to make sure that we are able to have a good environment to run our code and to get the expected result. So let us go ahead and do that. So what the code, the environment you are going to use is known as Visual Studio, like I had earlier mentioned. So let me show it to you in case you have never seen or you don't have Visual Studio. So you just go to your browser and type Visual Studio. So you usually have Visual Studio Code. That is usually better. So Visual Studio, like I have said, creates an environment for us to be able to run our code and to test it, which is very important. So you just go ahead and download. So for me, it's giving me the option .deb and RPM just because of the operating system I'm using. So some of you are using Windows, others are using Mac. So when you type Visual Studio Code, it will automatically detect the type of operating system you have, and it will give you the appropriate option that you should use. So you should definitely go ahead and download it. And once you download it, you should go through the process of setting it up. In case you do not know how to do that, I will make sure that I do a video on that so that you can be able to set that up quickly. However, it is once it has downloaded, just click on the file and you will be able to download or to install your Visual Studio. So click on the file, right click on it and click, especially if you're on Windows, click on where it has been written run as administrator, and you should be able to navigate your Visual Studio successfully. So the next thing that we want to do after we have our Visual Studio is to go ahead and create the files that we need. And the first thing we're going to do is create a folder. So this is so I've navigated to my files. I've gone to where it's written desktop. That's just where I want to put my project. And I will click new folder. And then I will type in the name of the folder. So I'll just call it login and sign up form. And I will click create. For me, it might look a little bit different, the process of creating a new file, just because of the operating system I am using. So for anyone who does not understand what we mean when we say an operating system is basically the interface that you use to interact with your computer. You see, how when you load that, when you open up or when you turn on your computer for the first time, it loads up the operating system. So for some of you, it will be Windows. For others, it will be Mac. If you're on your phone, it will be Android. If you're on an iPhone, it will be the iOS. If you are on Linux like I am, it will load Linux. So what this do is that they help us to interact with the machine. Remember, at the end of it all, computers and phones are sort of computers. They are known as mini computers. Computers understand zeros and ones only. So because we do not want to communicate with a computer using zeros and one, when I want to create a folder like this, I don't want to do it using zeros and ones. So that is where we normally have the operating system to make it easier for us to communicate with the computer using friendly language that we can easily understand. So that is the use of the operating system. So we'll just go ahead and create a new folder in the desktop. So personally, that's why I've created it. You can create it anywhere you want, as long as you are able to use it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Visual Studio. So this is after you have already downloaded and installed your Visual Studio. In our previous classes, we mostly used to make use of Replit, however, which was a free online IDE. So for those who missed me explaining what an IDE is, an IDE is basically the environment that allows you to be able to write code. And I gave an example of when you want to cook something or prepare something to eat, you normally go to the kitchen to do so. So because the kitchen is the appropriate environment to make your snack or your meal or to get something to eat. I do not expect you to start cooking in your balcony or in your washroom or in your kitchen, in your bedroom. It is more appropriate to go to the environment that supports you to be able to cook or get something to eat. So the same thing, even when you're writing code, you have to make sure you're in the right environment. And that environment is what we call an IDE. IDE in full stands for Integrated Development Environment. I'm just going to drop that in the comment section so that you can see what I'm talking about in case I am not clear. Integrated Development Environments. Yes, so I've dropped what I mean or the acronym IDE and what it means in full, Integrated Development Environment. So now we are inside our Visual Studio. We have created a file, a folder. Let me go ahead and make sure that I am able to open that folder using. Let's talk about this because I want to know where the line. I want to mute my phone just to make sure we do not get interrupted. Okay, so I'm just going now to open that folder using Visual Studio. So where it's written start, where it's written open folder, that's exactly what I will do. So I'll click on it. Okay. For some reason, it's not opening. Let me see. I don't know if my screen has frozen. Yeah, let me just open that to Visual Studio once more. So for me, I'm just clicking on the Visual Studio icon because I've already downloaded and installed it, and I'm able to use that automatically. If you do not know how to download and you really want to follow through with this program, let me send you an online version of Visual Studio that you can quickly use, and it's gonna be also really simple. You don't have to download anything in this case, so it's pretty straightforward. So just to go to your browser or your Google and just type VS Code Dev. And when you type that, you'll see this Google Visual Studio Code workspace. So click on it, and automatically that gives you an online Visual Studio that you can use, which will also work the same way you would want and all that. So for me, I prefer working with light mode just so that I can make sure you guys are able to see my screen, especially when I am doing this online trainings. As you can see, light mode is a little bit more favorable. So I'm just going also to send a link on that so that you can just click on it and you can continue with the class without any worry. So there it is in the chat section. So in case you're using this, you just click open folder, and it will give me an opportunity to be able to click on and open the folder that I had. So I'll say yes, view files. Yes, I trust. And there it is. So my folder has now been added. So let me just maybe zoom out so you guys can clearly see. So my folder has clearly been added, and I am using the online version. So for those who have Visual Studio actually installed on your machine, extremely same process. Okay. For some reason, this version is giving me a headache, so I'll just stick to I know what it's doing, but I don't want to start resolving it right now. So once I have opened my folder, I'm just going to close this welcome because I no longer need it. And now I'm going to go, I am inside my folder, my login and sign up form folder. I do not have anything there. It's currently empty. However, that is still okay. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this icon here, the one written when I hover the first one written new file. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to create a HTML file. So like I said, we are building the login and a sign up form that we are able to add an email and a password and authenticate or verify if the user we have actually exists. So HTML is used to create structures or websites. So for example, let me just explain this in another way. If you've ever seen an incomplete house before, then you know what HTML is about almost. HTML just behaves very similarly to how an incomplete house looks like. It adds the structure of our house. It's only through HTML that we are able to know the different parts that should be there in a house or in a website, in this case when we use HTML. So if you think about a building that you have seen that is incomplete and all that, you are able to figure out which part, some of the features that the building will have. For example, let me just present this in its totality. Yeah, so great. So this is an example of an incomplete building that we have here. And I'm so sure you guys have seen other incomplete buildings in your neighborhood and stuff like that. So if I look at this image, some of the things that I can see that this building will have, it will have these sliding doors that will be here. It will have a window. It will have like a small, we can say just like okay, it's a staircase. So, and then the door is right here. So the other thing, we have a balcony here. We also have really large windows here, and some windows, same thing here. So this structure of the house, and even a roof, of course, and a balcony here. So this structure of the house gives us an idea of the different parts that will be there. And this is exactly also what HTML does for us. It's able to present different parts of our website in the browser, which makes it very easy for us to use. So that is what we are going to do. We are going to create the different parts of a sign up and a log up and a login form using HTML. So it's also very important to know that when you're creating a HTML file name, it should have no spaces. There should be no special characters like a full stop. I mean, like a question mark, a percentage, a hashtag. It is advisable to have your name in small letters. There should be no space, and there should always be the ending or the extension known as .html. Those are some of the things that should always be there. So let's get into it. So in case you have any question, feel free to drop in the chat section. I am keenly monitoring that so that I can make sure that, I am able to answer any questions or concerns you might have. Okay, so at the top of our HTML file, which is now the structure, we are going to add a file known as doctype, or a line of code known as doctype HTML. It is written exactly as I've written it. The doctype is in capital, there is an exclamation mark before it, and then HTML preferably in small letters. So this line of code, the whole purpose is to just let the browser know that where to find the HTML file. Remember, we've said HTML adds structure to our website. When you're building a house, you have no option but to start with the structure first. So the same thing when you are building a HTML, or when you're building a website, especially using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the first thing you have to start with is the HTML. You have to start with the structure. So the same thing, even when our browser is loading up our website, the first thing it looks for is the doctype HTML. Why is the doctype HTML important? It tells the browser where to find the HTML file, where to find the structure. Just like when you're building the house, you start with the structure, same thing. When you look for a website online, for example, if we are to look for our website, African STEM Girl. So if I look for it online, the first thing that will happen on the browser, it will find the HTML file. The whole purpose is, where is this HTML file? I need to find it because that is what contains the structure of this website. So that is the first thing it does. I relate it with a student who, whenever a teacher asks a question, they normally raise up their hand as the first person. So HTML is the doctype HTML is like that. Whenever you look for something in the browser or in the search engines are like Google. They help you to find out information that you're looking for. So whenever we look for anything, even if we were to look for maybe Netflix, the Netflix website, whenever we look for anything, the search engine first looks for the HTML file. And for it to know that it's in the right place, it's only by adding the doc type. So I'll go ahead, and that is what the doc type is for. So after the doc type, we are going to add the HTML tag. So a HTML document is normally divided into two. First of all, we normally write the HTML tag to enclose all our HTML code. So anything we are writing is enclosed inside the HTML code. So an example of how the HTML code works would still go back to this this house that we had. As you can see, the house has some walls. So anything that is related to this house, it's inside these walls. So the same concept. Anything that we are writing that is related to HTML, we enclose it inside the HTML tag. So the HTML tag acts like a wall. So a HTML tag is divided into two. It's divided to what we call the head and what we call the body. So very similar to the day-to-day terms that we normally use ourselves, the head and the body. So remember, the head normally contains information that nobody can see. Right now, none of you can see what is inside my head. Just like you can't even see what is inside the next person who is sitting next to you, what is in their head. But what they have on their body, you can see. For example, you can see that I am wearing a sleeveless top. If I'm walking down the street, I will see somebody who is wearing a pair of jeans, another person wearing a pair of trousers. So same thing with HTML. The head part, we normally add information that users on our website do not see. Here in the African STEM Girl Hub, I have information that in the head part of my code or my project that you guys cannot see. However, when I get to the body tag, that is where I add information that everyone can see. So that is just key to know. However, there is only one thing that we need to add in a head that everyone can see. Right now, as you can see here, I can navigate between different tabs because there is a title, there is a name here that is guiding me to know which tab I am going or I am navigating to. So to add that name at the top of the tab, we normally go to the head section and we use a title tag. So this one, I'll give it a title, sign up and login form. We can even call it registration form. You can call it anything you want. However, as long as it's a name that your users can be able to find and know where they are using the tabs. So if I run this code, let me add an extension. So we can add an extension that allows us to be able to run this code accordingly. So I'll just come here, search extensions, and I will search for something known as live server. So when I say running a code, I mean we want to see what we are building. We want to see that output. I don't know if I'm able to, it's not available. Ooh, okay. Is there any that is available? Let me see. Live server. Okay, I think we can use this. So normally on my machine, I use live server. So it says that that is not possible for this browser version. So I've opted to use browser version just because of anyone who might not have Visual Studio installed. So let me see if this works as I expect. I'll refresh just my code. I'll come back here. Oh, I need to open it again. Okay, I guess when you refresh, you have to add the file again. So let me just do that. I want to see if the live option will now be there. Okay, where do they put it? Let's see. Oh, this is not what I need. Just need to uninstall that. Let me find what we can use for the browser. However, I think we can come here to the index.html. And I can say open with. No. So to see if we can be able to. Okay. No. Okay, I guess this is why the one on your machine is easier to use than what has asked. How do you create the login? And okay, so that's what we are creating. Do you mean the title, or do you mean the whole form? So currently that's what we want to create. So I just want to make sure that we can be able to see the code that we are writing. None of this is available on that server for HTML. Let me see if this will work. This one is kind of like, it's not trustworthy. It's okay, but we'll see. Let me not judge it before I see if it works how I expect. Okay. It's okay if it's not working. So I do know of another way, and that's what we are going to use. So I'll come back to my document here, and I will say, sorry, I'll open inside or my folder, and I will say open with Google Chrome. So I have right clicked and chosen open with Google Chrome. This will allow me to be able to just see I wanted us to have a good shortcut here, but it's still okay. So immediately we add that title. You can see at the top here, we now have sign up and login form. If I remove it, just to show that this is actually what is making it work, so I'll just remove it from the head tag. If I, yes, save changes. So if I refresh this, you can see now it just shows index.html. So it's showing the file where we are writing our code. So that is why the title is normally important. It helps our users to be able to navigate from one tab to another, knowing where they are and where they want to go. So I'll just add that title. And now has it saved? I hope so. So if I refresh now, I can see now it shows login and sign up form, which is very easy because now I can navigate between different. If I have, like, I know some people do not close their tags, I mean their tabs once they are done. So they have so many tabs open here, and you rely on these names to know where you are. So that is how we normally add those names, and that is the only thing that you add in the head tag that users can see. Everything else we are going to add, users cannot see. And when I say users, I mean visitors in our website, they cannot see. So if now I want to go to African STEM Girl, just by that title I know. If I want to go to Netflix, just with this title I know. And if I want to go to the login form, just with that title I know. You can also add the logo, like you have seen here, they have added a logo. For Netflix, we also have ours here for African STEM Girl. I'll show you how to do that later on. Right now, we're just going to move forward because also of time. So yeah, so the next thing is, so remember I said a HTML document is normally divided into two. We have the head and we have the body. So that is very, very important. So, and we have said a HTML tag only adds the structure of our website. And if we want to add now color, just like how you find a house that is painted, you start seeing it coming into shape, especially when they add color, you just start seeing the house become more lively and all that. So when you want to add color in your code, we normally use CSS. CSS in full stands for cascading style sheet. So I'll just come here again, click on new file, and I will write style.css. So this is where we are going to add our styling. So HTML will have the structure and CSS will have the styling. So think of it this way, like we looked at that image before. We said you click on, if you in your estate you have seen incomplete houses, and those houses give you an opportunity to know that something is being constructed. Maybe it will be 10-floor building, two-floor building and stuff like that. So HTML does the same thing for us. It adds our structure. So to add the file, it's just the same way. Click on this icon here and just click on it and just type index.html. Once you're done, press enter and it will automatically create the file. So the separation between index.html and style.css is like how you normally have paint in a paint shop and there is the building. So how do you get to make the two happen? You bring the paint to where the house is. Since you cannot take the house where the paint is, you bring the paint where the house is, and then now you get a painter, and the painter paints the house using a brush or something, like a paintbrush or something like that. So currently we have our style.css. It's a separate file from the index.html. In fact, the index.html has no idea that this file exists. Just like when you're building a house, until you bring the painter, the rest of the people do not have an idea which color you're going to paint, where you're how you're going to paint it, which rooms you're going to paint which color. So the same thing even with the index.html. Currently, CSS has no idea that I mean, HTML does not have an idea that there is a style sheet. We normally call it a style sheet or a style file that can be used to make the HTML look beautiful. So what we are going to do is we are going to link the two of them. So we normally link them in the head tag. So I'll come here just below the title and then I write link and I write rel. Before I write rel, I write href, which means hyperlink reference. So it's like referring. So it's like, which file are you referring to? So I am referring to style.css. That is the file that I am referring to. And then rel means what is the relationship between these two files? Is that this is a style sheet. And then we have type, which now says which type of text will I find in this file? I'll find CSS text. and then I close it. So what now we have done, we have linked our HTML to our CSS. So you won't see that anywhere written in the in your website. Even if I refresh, you won't see that. Why? Because I said anything that we write in the head cannot be seen by users of our website. The only thing that they can see is the title, and most probably if you add a logo here, just like you can see Netflix has its own logo and African Stem Girl has its own logo. So unless you add the logo, but I don't want to first take a jump on that. I'll make sure we do that. We add that logo before we finish everything, this whole project. So now we have linked our style.css. So what I want us to do is I want to change this to a dark mode form. I know most of us currently use dark mode, so I'm just going to do the same. So I'll come here to my style.css and I can write body. So remember, we are inside the body tag now. The body tag is what the user will see. If I want you to see this change from dark mode to light mode, I am doing something inside the body tag. So I'll come here in the body, in the style.css, and say body, put a curly bracket, press enter in between the opening curly bracket and the closing curly bracket, and I will write background color to be, I can write black. So there are several ways you can add color. There are three main ways, though there are many, that you can add color in CSS. One is by naming the color. So like for example, I have typed black. By the way, if I now come to my sign up form and I refresh, it has turned to dark mode. So now I am inside a black themed form. So that is how you can play around with dark mode and light mode. You can add a button that makes you change those background colors from white to black. So the other way you can add color, so I'll come here on Google and I'll just type color picker, color picker. And here there's so many options of color pickers, so we'll just pick the first one. They're all the same at the end of the day. So the goal is to pick my color. Wait, why are they showing me an image? So I think this is how you can upload an image and know maybe the colors used in that image. I don't want this. I don't want to use an image to figure out the colors. I just simply want the colors. I can even use what is up there, but I don't want to use that. So yeah, I think we can use HTML color codes. So sometimes, especially when designers are working on a design, they may want to use the colors that are in a particular image to maybe create a post or something. So such an example we'll use. So we'll use this website. I'll also drop the link of the website in the chat section. I think it's still loading. So I'll just drop it in the chat section for your referral. So when we use the color picker, or how we use the color picker is that if I scroll down here, I can choose first of all any color that I want. So for example, and this allows me to even add different shades of colors. For example, green has so many shades. So by using the color picker, I can navigate to the shade that I resonate with most, rather than just typing the word green, and so forth and so forth. So for me right now, I'll just currently go to black, or even I can go to a particular shade of black or gray, because also black has different shades of black. So after I have that, I will see several options here. I'll see RGB, I'll see a hashtag with some numbers. So this hashtag, we call it hexadecimal. So just like how a shape that has 6 sides is known as a hexagon. So here we also have a hexadecimal number. So I can just capture that, and I'll go back to my style.css, and I will just write that number. So I just put hashtag in front. So what that does is that now I won't see maybe a huge difference, but there has been a slight difference, just because I have picked a different shade of black. So yeah, that is how you add a background color. There are some things I also want us to add on this body tag, and I will explain what each does. The other thing is I want to add, I can even add like a default font that we can use. I know right now a lot of people use different themes for their phone, and they like how maybe the text looks like. So the same thing, we can add a particular font on our project. So one of the fonts I'll pick is called as Poppins. I can pick so many, there's so many. So it's up to you to just find whatever works for you. I just want to show you how you can add a custom font rather than just using what is ideally there. So this is how the font looks like, and these are the different ways you can write that font. So you can change, if I come here to font, just maybe to show you an example. Here are different fonts that are available that you can use based on your preference. So there's so many, as you can see, that you can use based on what you want. So it's up to you to kind of try out and be like, okay, I like that, I don't like that, and so forth. So I'm just going to use Poppins just to show you how to add a custom font. So this is Poppins. I'll just select it. So I think it's loading. Okay, so I'll click here on the blue button, written get font. So there are several ways you can download it on your machine. However, I'll just go to get embed code, and I'll go to where it's written import, and I'll see that I should add it, embed in the head part of your HTML style. So I don't have to put it, because when they write style, they mean you're adding it as a style. So if you add it inside HTML, you use the style tags. But because I want to add it inside CSS, I'll just copy it, and I will come here to my CSS, and I will just paste that. So it's a long line, don't worry. So if I come back, that is how, now with that, I have added that font on my project. And if I want to use it, I'll just come here and I'll say in the body, I just want to make sure that the font family, so we normally say font family to be Poppins. So with that, now I can be able to successfully use Poppins. So the other thing is, because we have put our background color as black, how can users read? You see, with this Google font page, they made sure, because their background color is black, a lot of the text is white. So we have to also make sure of the same. We have to put a bright color that we can use. It doesn't have necessarily to be white, but at least a color that can contradict the black. Because by default, anytime you add a text, by default, it's normally black in color. So we have to make sure that that is not the same. So I'll put here a color code. And if I copy this color code, if I just want to know the good thing with CSS, actually, if I just click, it also gives me that color color picker, and I can be able to see the type of color that it will be. And if I move this around, I can change it to different colors. However, I was comfortable with what I had, but as you can see, it's not a big deal. So you can have one of the colors, you can make it red, anything you want. So that is also something that you don't have necessarily to go to the color picker. Also, immediately you type color and you start typing hashtag, CSS will give you those options. Even here for the black, it will give me those options to change. Yeah, so somebody has asked me, how do I put the first symbol in index.html? Maybe you can clarify which symbol specifically in the index.html. So if it is the exclamation mark, click shift number 1. If it is this exclamation mark here, click shift number 1. If you want to add this bracket here, click shift. So when you click, one finger should be on the shift, like you long press, and then next to letter M on your keyboard, you should see those brackets. So if you want to do the beginning one, we call it the opening. You click on it, and when you get to the end, you just click shift, and then your other finger can click on it. So the same with the exclamation mark, long press, shift. If you don't have shift on your keyboard, it's a big arrow pointing upwards. So you can use that arrow, one finger to long press on that arrow, and then you click number 1, it will show that exclamation mark. Okay, so now we have added the color, we have said our font family. Oh, I wrote Poppins, it should be Poppins. Yeah, Poppins. So I've also added my background color. So I'd want to move on to now adding the form. So to add the form inside the body tag, we will introduce something we call a section. So kindly bear with the kids who are playing outside. As we all know, it's holiday season. So, they're just having some fun. So in case you hear those noises, just bear with me. So we have section, and then we add a class. So a class allows us to be able to style our HTML elements in the CSS part. So remember, HTML is the structure. CSS is where you have the styling, the color, everything that is coming together is on the CSS part. So we want to be able to make sure that we can style our elements successfully. So to do that, we add a class. So a class will help us to identify elements. You can use a class or an ID, and the difference between the two of them is like all of you right now are in a programming class or in a coding class. So you share that characteristic that all of you are in the same environment, and you're doing the same thing to get the same goal. An ID is normally unique. So, for example, here in Kenya, when you turn 18 years old, you will be given an ID by the government for the government to be able to know how to identify you, because there might be somebody somewhere who has the same name as you, maybe has the same birth date, and so forth. So for them to have to know how to distinguish the two of you, they will give you an ID. So IDs are normally used to uniquely identify elements, and class names are usually used to group elements that have the same characteristic. So yeah, so that's it with regards to why we are using a class. And when we use a class, to give it now that name, we put it in quotation marks, and then we write container. So first I write container. That will be my first class name. Oh no, that's not container. Container. That will be my first class name. And I will come now to my CSS, and I would style the container briefly, just so that we can be able to see how that is looking like. So I'll come here to my CSS. So when you want to style something that has a class name, you start with a full stop and then you write container. So this is the only way CSS will understand you're styling something that has a class of container. And if you hover, you can see that element class container, which shows you that it is capturing an element that has a class container. So the other thing we are just going to do here, we are going to write we're just going to say the height of the container to be 100 VH. So VH in full means vertical height. It can also be very relative to percentage. So maybe you're saying like 100%. So what you mean is occupy the whole screen 100%. So from top to bottom, that is 100%. From width, from each one end of the screen to the other, we call that vertical width. And you can also say 100%. So I'll say height to be 100 VH, width to be 100. I can also write VW, or you can write percentage. There is no difference. And then now I'll introduce something we call, okay, let me first get to that point. I'll come back to my HTML, and inside now my HTML, I will add a container, and to a container just related to how in your kitchen you normally have maybe container where you put your rice, container where you put flour, or container where you put maybe cereal, so that you can separate them. So the same thing also in programming, we have containers that allow us to group elements together. Sections, this is not supposed to be section, it's supposed to be sections help us to separate one part of the website to the other. For example, if I go back to this Google font website, there are different sections here. There is a section that has this part of readability, filters, and all that. If I go to, if maybe I remove this so that it goes back, there are different sections which show different parts of different types of fonts, and so forth and so forth. And maybe a section that, not even maybe, a section that allows me to search for a font, another one that shows me the Google font icon, another one that shows me some of the fonts that I have selected. So sections allow us to break down different parts of our website. However, a container now, like this is a container that contains information about this Roboto font. I can see how many styles there are, who created it, and the name and an example. So these are different containers because it allows us to separate different elements together. So I'll come here and I will actually create a container, and this container is just going to have our login form. So I'm going to write class, and I'm going to write form login. So I'm just creating a class called form, and I'm giving this class two names, two class names. One is it is a form, and the other class name is that this is a login. The reason is because I will also have another form for sign up. So I just have to be able to distinguish them, and at the same time to make sure if there is, because the forms will be similar, if there are two forms that they're going to look the same, I want them to share some of the CSS so that I don't keep repeating code that can be reused. And that is why also one of the reasons why we use class name is so that we can reuse code where we can. So after writing form login, I'll go ahead. Okay, so here maybe I can just write a container and give it also another class name known as forms, because it will have both the login and the sign up form. I can actually go ahead and just also add another form here, or another container, just to show you the difference and why it is important. And I will say this is form as well, but I want this to be for sign up. So anything with relation to sign up will be enclosed in this form, and anything with relation to login, it will be enclosed to that form. So those are the forms which allows us to separate the two. So I'm also going to add another form just that will enclose just now the content. So when I talk about content, let me just show you the end result we are trying to have. Yeah, so this is what we are trying to build. So you can see this is the login form and this is the sign up form. So we want to have, there is this container that encloses everything in the login form, and also it encloses everything in the sign up form. However, there is another container. It's not visible, but it is there, that encloses the title, login, the fields, and all that, and another one that now will enclose the sign up and everything. So that is what we are trying to do. So I'll come back to my HTML here and now add this form that encloses the details, now the title, and where I can input my email and password and so forth. So I'll come here and I will type div class. So from login, so I write this form content. So just because it's enclosing that content, okay? So now I have that content, that container that will enclose that content, so I can go ahead and confidently add my information. So the first thing I will add is a header. So a header just does exactly as the name says, it adds a header or a title. So I'll say this is login. Okay, so maybe let me just get up to there and style up to that point so that you guys can kind of understand. So remember, HTML adds structure. And if we come here to now our website, how it looks like, if I refresh, we can't see anything yet, but there is no problem. It is there. It's just that we can't see it. Remember, I told you whenever you add a text, because this header is what we have added, it's normally black in color. So I have to change that color to be a color that allows me to be able to see what I need to see. So the first thing that I will do is I have a form here. So I will style this form container. This, you see this, that is what I will style. So I'll come here in my style.css. So remember I said if anything has a class name, you put dot form. Like so here, because I've put dot form because I am styling anything that has a class name form. I want it to have the same, some similar styles without having to rewrite it over and over again. So the first thing I will do is I'll write something known as position. And I'll say I want the position to be absolute. I will explain what this means. So remember also, whenever you're writing CSS, you write the name, open the curly brackets, and then you write what you want it to happen. For example, height, full colon, the value, 100 VH. So I said 100 VH means in percentage. So now here we are saying position to be absolute. So when you're talking about positioning of CSS elements, so let me just show you a good visual. Let's go here to images. So shall find a good visual that allows me to just show you what it does. Okay, I think we can use this. Hopefully. Okay, let me show you using another. So So don't mind. So just focus on, I just want us to focus on a positioning. I just want to go to a site that has clearly outlined that they have done good visuals, and I like how I think it will be easier for you to understand with those visuals. So here is positioning. So for example, here there is something called absolute. So absolute is able to act. You can be able to align it based on the normal flow of the document. Okay, so it works in accordance to the normal flow, and you're able to organize it how you want. So we also have relative. So relative is you have an element, even if it is enclosed inside a particular element, especially if it is enclosed inside a particular element, it will be absolute. If, for example, if you put an absolute, it will be relative to that particular element. So this is relative to, it's absolute to this relative element. So it's like how you are a sibling. I mean, you're the child of your parents. So if I was to tell you I was to say all the relatives of your parent to align, you would also show up because it is relative, it is relatable to that particular parent element. When you're absolute, it's like yes, you have that relationship, but rather than you maybe going and standing next to your parent, you stand in, or next to them, you just stand in a different manner. So just that's just what it basically means. Like in your own location. Maybe if somebody tells you stand behind on the left, you will just go ahead and do that. It's not directly relative to your parent. You have kind of positioned yourself based on what you want, or maybe based on particular instructions. So that is the same thing. We say absolute. So I will also give a width to this form. So I can say I want it to have a maximum width. So you can put just width, or you can say no, I want it to have a particular maximum width. So I can say the maximum width to be 430px. I can also say the padding to be 30px. So when I talk about px, I am meaning in full it's pixels, and pixels represent like a dot in your screen. So when you talk about px, it will cover a particular number of dots, maybe in a width, and so forth. When we talk about padding, I think also this one has a good visualizations of padding. So padding is the space around an element. So for example, um, if we just write the word padding, we normally mean the space around that element. We want to increase the space. If you say you want padding top and bottom, you add the space at the top and at the bottom. If you want to edit the space the left and right, you edit the left and right. If you only want to edit padding of one side, maybe the top, or the right side or the bottom of the left side, you just add accordingly. So these things are normally important, especially when we are aligning stuff, and we will see how this is important. So in our form, it is important because we want some space around this element, especially this form. We want this space here. So we do that we achieve that using padding. The other thing is we want some border radius. When we talk about border radius, is we want our element to have some curves. It's not to be sharp. If I come here and I just write border radius, also this has a good visualization. So don't focus on the values which are in here, just focus on the images just because this is slightly different. So if you look at this, so this is rounded. This is also, you put some, so this is how border radius affects. It's through border radius that we are able to have even buttons look like this. This is when you have no border radius and so forth. So you can even edit different parts of the border radius. So you can say, I only want the top, I only want the right side, I only want the bottom side, I only want the left side, or I only want the top left side, the top right side, the bottom right side, or the bottom left side. So padding, I mean, border radius allows us to be able to have those curves, which is something that we want in our form here. So I'll come here and I'll add a border radius, and I can give it a value of 6px, not too much because we don't want it to change. So let us see if we can see anything. So not yet, a lot has not yet changed, just because we have to add more styling. So the other styling I want to go back with it to is this container. You see this container that contains everything in the section. I need to add more styling to it. So we only specified the width and the height. So the other thing is I want this form, this whole form, to be aligned in the middle. To do that, we normally use a property known as display. So I'll first specify the display, and I'll say I want it to be flex. Flex means that you're making it a flexible container. And then after that, I'll say align the items to the center, and also justify the content to the center. So I can even add a slightly different background color from what we have, just so that we can be able to have some form of distinction with the background, which is black. So I can come here and also I say this container, the background color, I can say I want it maybe to be, I think it's giving, I don't know why. Okay, it's, of course it will give me some options that I had. So like I said, there is no right or wrong. It's just what you kind of feel like you want to add. So I just want to make sure it's not too dark. So, okay, the value I had chosen in my code is hashtag 121212. So just because I just want it not to be too dark. So if I look at it now, let me refresh. I can see that now my login is positioned literally at the center of the whole form, EcoHapo. It's positioned at the center because I have added these positionings here. Okay, so we won't see much difference in the background, but I think we should. Let me see if I just move it up. I think maybe that color is still a little bit too. Oh, sorry, not that one. Oh, wait, sorry. I am editing the whole background. No, 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 no. That one we have already sorted at the top. I should be editing the background inside the form. I was editing inside the container because remember, container contains everything, but I only want to edit the one for the form. So I'll come here inside the form. That's where I'll change my background. Background color. I'll give it, I think I want 1E, 1E, 1E. Oops, 1E. So if I come here now, let me refresh. I can see a small, it's so small, but it is actually there. So let us add some content into it or more structure so that it actually becomes kind of bigger. So the other thing I'll change in the form is, if you notice now, the name has disappeared. So because it is on a black background and it's almost matching that color. So to do that, I'll just write color and I can give it a brighter value. So inside the form, that's how the color we want. Let me see if now that appears. It's okay if it doesn't. I'll change it in because it is a header here. So I can come here and say header. So because my header does not have a class, it's just written header, I can go ahead and just write header. And I give it now a color. And I say the color to be the color, the value that I wanted. So if now I look at it, I refresh it. Okay, I don't know why it is not collaborating with me. Let me see. Is it that I have used, oh, I have used the same color as the whole background. Wait, but this should work because that's the text color. Okay, let us just continue. I'll figure it out as we continue why it is behaving as it is. So the next thing is I'll now go ahead and add my form. So now inside still form content below header, I'll come and say form. And then in between now I'll write what I want. So I'll say I'll enclose my content inside a container. So, and then that container, I'll give it a class name. And I'll say I want this to be field and to be input field. So I wanted to give it two class names. I'll tell you why, because sometimes you want to style something at once. So I can style different elements at once using one class name, and the other one can just be for custom styling. It's like how you have two names or three names, two or three. One name is uniquely yours, and the other one is like a family name. So almost the same thing. So I'll just write the input type to be email because the first thing that I want people to put in is their email. So I'll go ahead and say placeholder. Placeholder just gives you an opportunity to put in that email. So what we mean by placeholder is what you're seeing here, written email. So that is what it just guides the users on what to type. And I'll also give this a class of password, and this will be very important in the future as we will see. So we have now our class. So the next thing that wait, sorry, not password, email. The class should be email. The next one is where it should be password. And also the class names that you use should be descriptive of what it's about. Like you have seen, it will be very unfair for me to write a class as password when I'm actually talking about emails. So it's just good for it to refer to what you are currently talking about. So email. Okay. Just a minute. Yeah. So we'll do another container. So this one now will be for putting in our password. All right. Class to be field. And then this one to be input field. And then I'll just write input type, sorry, to be password now. Yeah. Placeholder to be password. You can even add a whole sentence, maybe enter your password or something, and then class to be password. Yep, and then I'll just close that. So after that, I will go ahead, as you can see here in my form, there is a part where you can be able to click on this icon, especially on the password field, because what will happen is whenever you have a password, so here it's how ours is currently looking like because we have not styled it, nothing will happen. But when you type password, you can see it is hidden, it is not visible. So for us to be able to make it visible, we will use some icons. So I will use an icon. So there are normally very, very many places where they offer icons for free. And you kind of have to figure out whatever you want and you like. So I'll just paste a link of what we will use here in the chat section. So what these icons allow us to be able to do is to make sure that we are adding some cool stuff in our website, especially icons. You know, we are in a generation where we use a lot of icons. So I'll just add there. I'll just type hide. Sorry, hide. So here it is. So you can pick if you want this that is solid, all of it, or the one that has frame. And when you click on it, you see it gives you an icon. Yeah. So if I'll go to the HTML code, so it just gives me that option, or I can add it as a font here where it's just I class BX hide. And if I want the one for showing, sorry, show, here it is. It looks like this. So you will add this. So to be able to use this icon successfully on your website, you can download them or you can just go ahead and add a particular line of code at the top of your website. So for example, this is now talking about like HTML. So if you want to use it as a font, you just copy this line of code and you'll be able to use it. So I will just go ahead and do that. Copy. The reason why I'm saying use as a font is because there are two options. Remember that it was giving us when we select like show, it gives us the option of web component and font here at the bottom of the screen. So I want to use the font one. That is why I am going with that option. And then I'll come to my index.html at the top here. I will now add that code. So that will allow me to use the icons. Okay, and then now I can be able to come here because this one I want it first to, originally we normally put the hide. So I'll just come here. I'll start with the hide icon and I'll show you how now to change between hide and show. So I'll just come here and I will copy. I'll click on the HTML, just click on the HTML. You don't have to download. When you download, it will add on your machine. But we really don't need to. So I'll just come here now. I think it has added the wrong thing. It has added an image. Let me just go ahead and write. I can even copy it from here if I'm not wrong. So it's saying it has copied. Let me see. Yep. So now it has added that that icon successfully. So the only thing I will do is I will just add a class name, my own class name, to easily identify this. I'll just call this icon. So these are stuff you can do. And if now I come to my and I refresh, here it is. It's just that it's not yet working, but we have added it. So now we have to make it work, and we will make it work. So I'll come back here. So we have added the password. I think up to that point we can style those so that it looks good. I can also see we are running out of time. I thought 2 hours would be enough, but it looks like we need more than 2 hours when it's a live video. So I'll come here now. I have the form. So I have the header. So let me just work on making this header. So I'll change this color so that it stops giving me a problem. F5, I'll just add this different color. So let us see if now that reveals our header. Remember it was somewhere here, but we could not see it. What is this? That is here. Let me add the font weight, but I can't add it if we can't see it. Let me add styling for the form. Absolute maximum width, padding, border radius, background. And then okay, let me see if I add more styling. We'll come back to the header, to the if it will behave better. That field. Say position to be relative, not inherit, relative. So I talked earlier on, I talked about the difference between relative and absolute. So I just said relative, imagine like how you are a relative, you have a relatives. So maybe if somebody tells you go and stand next to your relatives, you will do that. So sometimes we normally align our elements based on elements that we consider relative. I will show you how you know an element is related to the other, a HTML element in this case. So let me first put a height. So here I am styling this element, the form. So I am inside the field. So I'm styling anything that has a field and also has a class form. So we have elements that have a class form and other elements that have a class field. So we said anytime you're styling anything that is a class, you put a dot. So that is actually what I am doing. So I'll give it also a width of 100%. I'll add some margin top. So margin is just some space that you add on the element. In case you want to fully understand some of the things that I am mentioning, we have a book that we have written and also another booklet. So in the chat section, there is a link you can click and you can be sent all those resources. Some are free, some are paid, so you will just decide on what you want. But also the free resources are really, really good, so take advantage of that. So let me see if this one is behaving how I want. Okay, so there is something here in black. Let me try and trace what that thing is. So if I can find some of my code here, and if I kind of know what is giving me a problem, actually when I can click on it, there's something in black there. What is that? Sign up. Oh, I had added a sign up form here to show you the difference between the different containers, and I did not do anything with it. Let me remove it for now so that it stops giving us an error, because till we style it, it will just continue giving us an error. So I believe now even we can see the title. We could not even see the title because of it. So now we are seeing our email and our password. So let us continue styling it. So now our title, I'd want it to be bigger and placed in the middle. So I'll come here. So remember, our title login is inside a field known as header. So that is why here I am styling header. So I'll come here and I'll say text align to be center. And also I have already given it a color. I can increase the size using what we call font size. I can set the font size to be like 28px. And I can increase so this is like making a text bold. So we call it, in programming, we call it font weight. So I can say the font weight to be 600. So if I look at it now, let me refresh. So I can see the word login has now become bigger. It is positioned in the middle. And yeah, it has some, the font size, at least it looks a little bit bolder. So that's what we want. So the next thing we have is here on the form. Yeah, so we have done that. So here on the form, we can add some space. We can add more space, not actually on the header, but if you come here, after the header, there is the form. So we can add some space between the header and the form. So to do that, we'll just come here to the style.css. I'll just put it just below the header. So form, I'll say I want it to have a margin top of 30px. So if I now go ahead and refresh, I'll see that there has been an increase in space. It's not that big, but it's just good. It's a preference. When you're styling, it's all about how you want something to look, not really a matter of right and wrong. It's just basically, how do I actually want something to look? So the next part I will style is the input. So the input is where our users are typing in whatever they want. I want to style it so that it looks a little bit better. So I'll come here and I will write .file input, and I will also I can style two things at the same time if I feel like I want them to share the same characteristic, which in this case I do. But for now, I think we can just let us just do file input one at a time so that you guys don't get confused. And I'll say height to be 100. I can write % if I want. And the width also to be 100%. And I would say the font size, sorry, it should be a semicolon, then font size. So the size of the font that we have inside those fields, maybe I can give it 16px. So just remember, guys, it's not that I have crammed these things or anything, just that I had built the project before. So it's easier for me to just capture some of the things that I had already done. And CSS is purely on how you want your website to look like. So it's not something you cram, it's just trial and error. So even for me, I just had to try it out. And if I find something that I like, I leave it there. So CSS, that's just how CSS works. So we said border radius allows us to be able to make our input to have a small curve on the sides. So this can be 6px. Okay, sorry. So 6px. So let us let us see how that will look like now. So if I refresh, wait, that does not seem like it has made a lot of change. Oh, I have written file. It is supposed to be field input. It's supposed to be field input. Yeah. So inside the field, there is the class field, there is this input. That is what I am trying to style. So I wrote file, that's why it's not picking it up. So let me correct that. It should be field input. If I refresh that now, yeah, so you can see it has increased in size and all that. At least we have more space to work with. So let me continue adding more styling to make it even look better. So now I will come here. So I'll add another field input. The reason is because this styling, I wanted it to be the same with the styling for another element we're going to add, known as field button. So let me actually just go ahead and add it so that it does not show me an error by saying such an element does not exist. So I'll come here and just add a button. So the button that we have to add, because this is the login part, we add the button for login. So I'll come here. But before we add that button, you can see there is a sentence here. There is a sentence for forgot password and another one now for, and then login, and then after that is don't have an account. So let me first add this sentence, forgot password. So I'll come here and I will say div. I'll create another container. I'll give it a class of form link. Oops, the classes needs to be enclosed in a quotation mark like that. And then inside that class now write a href. I'll say to be, so href just means where do you want people to be redirected. So currently we do not want them to be redirected. Normally when you click on this on most websites, it normally takes you to another form where you put in like your email and then they send you as password reset link, but we really don't need that. So for now I'll just put a hashtag because I don't want it to go anywhere, but I want it to be there just for aesthetics. Forgot. I can just write pass, but it's good for it to be the whole name. So forgot password. So it's kind of like asks a question: did you forget the password? And then when somebody clicks that link, it takes them somewhere. So the other thing now is we are going to now add this login form, a login button. So I'll come here and say div class to be filled, button field, button field, and then I can now write button to be login. Yeah. So now what has happened is, now if I go to our form, I have the forgot password and also the login button. So you can see the login button automatically looks almost similar in terms of height and width with the inputs that we have here, which is why we wanted to we have given it a field, button field. You said the tag is button. So that's why we said inside the field, go to the button and also add the same characteristics. So by automatically just having this now, we haven't added any styling, but it has picked up those stylings because we added it here. So I want to add some custom styling to field inputs that I don't want them to be there in field button. So I'll go ahead and say field input now to add its own separate stuff. So I'll add some styling to that. So I'll say I want it to have a padding. So we have said padding is the space around an element. So you can say, so it normally goes left bottom, right top. So I can just come here and even write padding bottom to be 15 px. Too much space. It's not going to give me an error, but I'm just going to remove it just so that I don't need to have that that extra space. So as you can see, currently our inputs are white in color, which is not going with our aesthetic, is with how our website look like. So I'll add a background color, and I'll set the background color to be I'll just put 33. It's just a shade of black. Yeah. And I will say the color of the text to be, we have used this color before, so I just want it to match with that. Actually, there it is. And then I'll just continue now to adding a border. So a border is just some space, to align enclosing that input, and I'll say it to be 1px, that is the width of that border. I'll say it to be solid, and I'll also give it a particular color, so just a shade of black as well. So if I look at it now, let us refresh, we see. So now it is black, and we have also our text changing color accordingly. So let us continue. So I want us to, whenever somebody like focuses on our, like they are typing, we want to have, you see this purple border, we want to add that. So I'll come here and I will say when that field input is on focus, we say focus. What do I want to happen? I want it to have a border color. So I can add that particular color that I have, or you can go ahead and find your own color. So if I now go back to my form, let me just delete this response, that Google button. Has it refreshed? If I now go back to my form, oh, it's still white. Let me, is there something I have done wrong? Field input, focus. Okay, maybe I don't know if adding the width will help. So I can say border bottom, or I can say border width of the whole thing to be 2px. Let me see if now it will capture it. Okay, it's still not capturing it. Is there anything I have written wrong? Field input, focus. Yeah. Padding, field inputs. Or let me remove the outline of this field inputs and see if that will. So like I have said, if you want to know what everything, yeah, so it was that outline that was affecting. If you want to know what we mean by all those things, there's a link in the chat description. Just add your email and I will send you like there's actually like a step-by-step guide that I have written that shows what each part does and that accomplishes what we are doing here. So you can drop it in the chat section. Just drop the information there so that we send it to you. So one thing that is not looking correct is that this I is outside. So let us make sure it's inside. So we'll come here, and also I think there is something I am not liking about the size of that form. Let me come here rather than writing the height and edit percentage. Will that change? Okay. Okay. So I will see why that. I think as we continue styling, stuff will just get together. We'll get to how we want it to be. So we want this eye icon to act accordingly. So remember I gave it an extra styling called eye icon. So I'll just go ahead and copy that and just write this. So remember it's a class, so I write it like that. Somebody asking how to get to the index.html. So remember, you just come here. We created the form. We created the folder, and I said when you come here to the side, just click on this icon, the first one, and write the name index.html and go ahead and write your code. I hope that answers your question. So in the chat section, if you scroll up, I put a link to this vscode.dev. You can just Google it, and so you will have to write the code. So it's just basically an environment that allows you to write code and see the result, just like we are. So position to be absolute. I have talked about what it means by absolute. So top to be 50%. We just want it to be aligned to the top at 50%. Right at 10%, at 10px. And then there is something we call transform. So when it will be moving from opening from hiding password to showing password, how do you want that to happen? So that is basically what we're writing here. So I want it to translate. We write translate y, and we say at negative 50%. So as it is transitioning to the one from height to show, so those are some of the things we have to consider. We also have to edit the font size, and we set the font size to be 18px. And then we have to change the color. So the color of that icon, we can also change it. So for me, I changed it to be a particular shade of gray. And then the cursor. So the cursor is when you move your mouse over it. How do you want it to be? I want it to be a pointer. And padding to be 5px. So when we talk about like, I think I'll maybe just iterate on cursor. If I refresh, Now you can see it is inside, and when I move my mouse, it changes from being like a typing icon to a pointer. So it's pointing with like a finger. So that is what we mean when we say the cursor is now pointer, and we position it to a particular size. So that is now the eye icon. So I want to edit the field button, so that we can just have, I mean, to style the field button. So because remember, our button is currently not styled at all, so we want to make sure that that works. So I'll come here and write field, and you can see we have like 10 minutes remaining. So anything will not finish, we'll just finalize tomorrow. So I'll say the color to be hashtag. So this just means white. And then that is the text color. When you write color, you just mean the text color. You don't need to write text dash color or font dash color. We just write color whenever we are changing color in CSS. And then I say background color to be now that purple that I have. And then I'll say transition. So transition is how there we will put a particular color whenever somebody moves their mouse over the mouse. We want it, I mean, over the button. We want it to change to a particular color. So you have to add the transition of that color. So you say transition everything, give it a duration, and the way you want to transition, I want you to transition with ease. For those of you who edit TikTok videos, these are some of the things that you normally do when you're adding transitions. So I'll also say the cursor to be pointer. So I'll continue to the next one. So I'll say dot field button. So now how do I want it to look like whenever I move my mouse over it? So to do that, we normally say we are hovering our mouse. So I'll add a background color of, I just put a particular blue that I have. So remember, these are things that you edit depending on how you want. It's not that it is a must, it's just how you want it to look like. So if I refresh, now we can see it is purple, and when you move your mouse over, it is changing. You see it is transitioning. That is the 0.3 seconds and at ease. Yeah, so there is ease in and out, ease. Yeah, there's so many ways you can put that transition. So that is it. So let us edit that form link so that it stops looking the way it's looking. The one for forget password, we can hardly see it. So let us edit it. So I'll come here and I write. So it has a class of form link. So I'll come here and say dot form link. So the reason why I'm adding that dash is because in my class name, I gave it form dash link. So I have to capture it exactly as I wrote it. So I'll say align that to the center. And then also put some margin top. So just put like some space there. I'll put a space of 10px. So if I look at it now, so okay, there is something that I have missed in editing this code, because what I have and what I have here are totally a little bit different. So let me look. There is something I have missed. This code should not be looking like this. Let me look at this styling again. So we have our import. So here we can just say the margin to be 0. So sometimes they can add some margin without you knowing. So you can just specify, I want the margin to be 0 and also the padding to be 0. It's not a must to put it, but you can put it just in case the code automatically adds its own margin. There is something we call box sizing. box sizing. So all this I have talked about in that referral. If you want to know what I mean, kindly I mean that material or that resource, kindly go to the link and just click where to get the resources, and it will be sent on your inbox. So this is okay. Okay, so container has a height and a width and a display, align center, justify content. I don't know if it's this gap. Let me see. LPX. Let me see. Refresh. No, it's not that one. So that one is okay. Even this did not affect. I can just remove it. I just want to remove it so that it does not confuse you. We just stick with what we have talked about, but there is definitely something I have missed. Let me just find it. So I think it is this. Yeah, that was one of it. So the width, we should have a maximum width and the width. So maximum is especially when you're looking at your website in small devices, there is a particular width you want it to show in maximum. So that is what I have put there. Wait, let me see. I don't think it's the padding, but also let me add some padding here. I could feel like this was a little bit too little. That is the space around. You can even add it to 50. I feel like that's still little. Yeah, like that. So I want to, there is something I have missed here. Background. Okay. Yes, somebody has called me in the chat section. Yes, kindly go ahead. Do you have a question for me? We are ending in 2 minutes, actually. In literally 2 minutes, class should be ending because I also have another class, so I need to go to that. So height. So remember, the good thing about this video, if there is anything that you missed, it's on YouTube. You can just go ahead and repeat and watch it. I have also talked about, just making sure you, in case you need the resources so that you can practice on your own, just make sure you do that in the chat section. Just add your information there and we'll make sure we send it to you. If you feel like you're satisfied with the information that you have received, that's okay. But I would urge you to consider getting that resource so you can be able to streamline everything. Okay, let us just add, this should be 6. So let us make sure those are 6 because it's a hexadecimal. Okay, it looks like we are on the right track. So 1 more minute, let me add one more styling. So I'm adding the styling for the link still. It's still very congested. So I'll come here and say dot form link span. So span just means when it's on the same line with something, and then I'll say form link A. So A is here. In the form link, we added an anchor tag. or the link tag is normally called an anchor tag. So we are styling that together. So span, okay. So I'll just come there and I'll say font size to be 14px. Oh, oops, I deleted. Okay, it's okay. Font size to be 14px. I'll put some font weight to be 400, and then I'll put some color to be, yeah. So let us look at how that will look like. Let me refresh. Okay, so we just need to change the color when somebody hovers over it. However, I think we can stop there. We will continue from there tomorrow to make this form work. So we can just call this part one. We will make it work tomorrow. So as you can see on this one, if I come ahead and put my email, and maybe I just put a password. You can even click here to see the password. This is not a secure password. And then I click sign in, sign up. It will not accept. Okay. Just let me refresh this. So it tells me invalid email or password. So we want it to tell us that in case you have put in the wrong password. So, and when we sign up, we need to be able to put in the information, and then that information should allow us to be able to log in. So we will do that. We'll finalize on this tomorrow. So let us meet tomorrow. Your work will autosave if you did it on VS Code Dev. If you didn't, you need to come to where it is written file here on the side or at the top. You'll see somewhere written file, and then you click on autosave. Click on autosave or save. So one of them, autosave or save, but I urge you to do autosave because it will be saving automatically. So see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for being in this class. So remember, we have a resource on this whole project. If you want to go ahead and finish it before us, you're free to do so. So see you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.